not enough bangs to be had from Maestro Levi. The Maestro has a form that has already been pre-cut out, and he will put this on the bloutange, which is a Damascus piece of steel, and he will actually cut this out, which will start the process of making the straight razor. And this is where we start.
Hey.
Okay. The next step is that the Maestro actually cuts from the bandsaw the bloutange from his outline and begins to make the razor. This particular razor will end up being about an 8/8 razor. There we have. Hello. We're ready to grind. The Maestro has cut all by hand the razor blank. And this is again the bloutange Damascus, and this is the beginning of what will turn out to be a beautiful straight razor. Next he'll be drilling the hole in for the pin so that the razor can be put on a handle.
Come on.
Okay. The hole has been drilled into the blank, and the Maestro will, I believe, begin grinding, no? Okay. The Maestro does all his own forging and heat treatment, and he's preparing the coals now to get started in that process. And he will heat treat the metal and forge the metal and hammer the metal before he does the grinding. At this point, what the Maestro is doing is he's taking the lines from the cut off the razor, and he's softening the edges to prepare it to go into the forge. actual marking on the blue tongue as well that comes out. Start to see the pattern into the metal itself. So here he's actually heating the metal, and he's compressing the metal.
Right.
Compressing the particles within the metal with the heat treatment. At this point, the maestro is actually going to take the hand grinder and he's going to begin the grinding process to shape the blade for actual shaving. So he'll start to form the edge. At this point, the maestro's already formed the cutting edge of the razor, and so now he begins to do the grinding process and on the hollow grind. As the metal heats up, it's amazing as well because you can see the blue tones of Damascus pattern coming out in the heat as he grinds. Beautiful. Do the other side. The maestro says that every piece of Damascus has its own signature design on it. And so on both sides and with every piece that he works with, it will have a different design as it comes out. At this point, the maestro is back into the fire to begin the tempering process, and he has rested the razor on, and we'll see what color at this point that he takes it off at. So the maestro has the razor in the coals now, and he says for 10 minutes, and this is actually the heat treating process for the tempering. The first part was actually where he hammered with it, was to condense the particles, the molecular structure of the razor. As you can see now, the razor's gotten to the color that the Maestro wanted it to be. Now it dips into the oil. This is actually very beautiful to watch. You can see the pattern of Damascus already. Again, coming out now into the water bath. Now he has the temper right where he wants it. You can tell by the feel of the file on the edge. That was his test. The Maestro is going to put the razor back into the forge one more time, or the fire at this time, to soften the razor a little bit here. He told me that at the end that his temper on this is between a Rockwell 61 and a Rockwell 62. At this point, the Maestro can tell when the razor will be ready, because he's dipping it from the oil into the fire. When the flames stop, then that will be where the Maestro wants the razor to be. That will be, there he goes. The Maestro has now taken the razor off of the hot coals, and at this point, instead of having it separate in the oven where it would cool slowly, that's why he had it covered with the pan. And so now the process continues where it continues to cool very slowly. So he covers it again here, and the cooling process will continue more. At this point, the razor in the oven will wait 5 minutes and continue to cool, and then the Maestro actually is going to start the grinding process on it. The previous grinding was more from a shaping process. That will continue at this point with the razor having had all the heat treatment that it will get. All right, now the razor has cooled off, and the Maestro is going to take it to the grinding wheel. The grinding wheel, he says, needs to remain at a constant temperature of about 90 degrees centigrade. And so there's a water source that runs down at the top of that wheel and continues to pour water over it to maintain that temperature.
La parte tagliente deve essere perfettamente parallela ai lati.
As the Maestro goes onto the grinding machine, you see him clean the wheel a little bit, but the one thing that he stresses here is that the edge of the razor has to be absolutely parallel to the shoulder, to the spine of that razor, so that edge is appropriate, so that he has symmetry to the razor itself to be able to shave and cut with. The Maestro flattened out the edge then, and then he makes it perfectly straight to start. Now he grinds the edge in, and then he knows he starts from a perfectly parallel base. The Maestro says that basically, and you can see where I'm touching the razor, it is warm to the touch but not hot whatsoever from the stone having the cold water. And the Maestro stresses too, it's so important for that edge to be parallel, to be straight as he grinds. In the first grinding process, what the maestro says is that he takes the thickness of the tang and of the razor itself, and he sets the initial bevel. And what he says is that basically that is the width of a finger that goes across it, as you can tell that. Now, it's not sharp totally at this point, but in the initial grinding process, he has established the initial bevel that he wants. At this point on the grinding wheel, in this next part of the process, the maestro is going to be removing all of the oxidation off of the steel. In essence, he's going to be cleaning the steel. You see the dark, and he'll grind that all off. For the second part of the grinding process, what the maestro does is he goes up from where you saw the first finger of the initial bevel. Now what he'll do is he'll take the middle out all the way up into the back. And that's the second part of the grinding process. So you see the middle start to flatten out, and then he'll take all of that away all the way up to the back of the razor. The maestro has established the grind on the one side. Now we have the back, and we have at the end here where the cut is in it, and that's been established on this side from the second part of the grinding process. And now what he'll do is he'll do the same thing on this side. At this point now, the maestro has got the grind done on both sides, okay? And you can see that it starts to shape up as well. What the maestro's done at this point is he's had already two grinds. One was to establish the bevel, one was to shape the razor. Now he has four more grinds to go, and what he does with these is he actually establishes the grind itself and will finish shaping the razor.
Yes.
All right, this is part one of the four-part grinding. As you can tell, he has completely established the grind of this razor, and it's on both sides, okay? And as you can also tell that the shape of this razor is already taking place. You have an oblique point on it, and you have the heel rounded off, and now he will continue to the four parts of the continued grinding. So far on this razor, what you can see is we've done 3 grindings. Maestro did 1 grinding here, there's another grinding here, and you can tell on the edge there's yet another grinding at that point. So now he's going to go do the 4th grinding. Now, as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and the Maestro is going to do the 5th.
Yes, come on.
Come. You can tell now, the Maestro has done 5 grinds, and you can actually see the fingers at this point for the 5. And the Maestro knows he's done because of the eye and the art. It's the finish at this point until he does the polish. At this point, the Maestro has got abrasive belts, and each of the belts that you see is a finer grit of abrasive. And what he does is he'll go through the different levels of abrasive, and then he blends the previous grinds to where you won't be able to see them. You can tell from the first grit of belt that he's used that he's virtually blended away the fingers. They're hardly noticeable at all, as they were on the previous side. So with this belt, these go away, and then you end up with this before we go to the next stage. The first part of the polishing process is now completed. As you can tell from the razor, the grind is complete, the lines are gone, and the shape of the razor is totally established at this point. It's almost like a satin polish at this point, and yet now he goes on to more of the polishing process. At this point, the Maestro is on the last step, and he's using a very fine grit on this particular belt, and this will finish the polish on this razor. On the last 2 times that the Maestro went on the belt, one time he used a paste of aluminum oxide, and then the second time was a green, which is a chromium oxide. And these are fine grit pastes that bring a high polish out in the end. This is the final belt, which is the finest grit that the Maestro has, and this step is done right before he prepares it for the acid edge on the piece of Damascus.
Now give me a beat. Now give me a beat. Now give me a beat. Now give me a beat.
This is the final polish before the acid edge. This is on a, looks like a cloth wheel, and the Maestro removes all the paste and any other dirt that was on the razor through the grinding processes. Now the Maestro has dipped the razor into the acid, which is sulfuric acid, and you can see that it brings the pattern of the Damascus out. He leaves it into the acid bath for approximately 10 minutes. And you can also see where the tape is on the edge to protect it. The Maestro is now building a set of scales or handles for this razor. This particular wood is African ebony, and he custom cuts the designs for these handles, as you can see. Maestro is now preparing the handle, and what he's doing is he's got some ivory, and what he's going to do is cut out circles to embed the ivory into the handles. And so what he'll do is he'll cut out anywhere from 3 to 5 circles, and he'll actually carve out the handles and embed the ivory pieces in them. It'll be beautiful. Maestro now grinds down the ivory inserts. He has them glued to the base of a drill bit so that they fit perfectly, and then he grinds them to fit into the handle. He's got the places for 3 inserts for the ivory studs, and this is the first of them. Maestro's drilling out right now. He's going to make the collar and the pin to go through for the final attachment to the handle. So he's got the handle finished, and now he needs the pin and the collar in order to attach the razor blade to the scales. He's drilled out the washer for the insides of the scales and the 2 collars for the outside for where the pin goes through. From here, he takes the pin, and he has the collar and the washers, and he will attach the handle together. For the spacers on the inside, he's actually using a polyester type plastic material, and it's will allow the razor to open and close freely. The metal pieces will be strictly for the collars. All right.
Ora manca solo legno qui piccolo perché sennò vedi.
What you see here is the finished product. Now the Maestro still will take the tape off and put an edge on, but as you can tell, he now has the pin done, the collar's in place, he has the spacers on the inside, and he will put one more pin on for the razor to sit into the scales and the handle. This is absolutely beautiful. When we put the pin in, we sharpen it and we shave. Now the Maestro is going to drill a hole, and this is for the pin in the middle, and he'll put a spacer in between the scales for the third pin from the top, so that will go right onto the tang, will keep the razor from falling through the bottom of the scales. This is the spacer that the Maestro made. And so he will put the spacer inside, and then he will put another pin in, and it will come to hold the tang of the razor. So it will come in here, and one more pin. The Maestro on this one has put it back into the acid edge with the sulfuric acid because he wants to take the etching on the Damascus and take it down closer to the edge. So he redips it for a little bit, and then you get the design from the Damascus throughout the entire blade. For the final step, Maestro Levi signs his name on the tang of the razor and on the scales handle. So he etches it in there. Maestro Levi made in Italy.
Mastro Livi, 4 lì Abrams Scarperia Firenze 11 giugno 2006.
Ah, bellissimo.
A lei l'onore.
Eh?
Lei l'onore.
No, no. Ah.